fearless person. Featured here 10 years ago, and I'm very glad that Stefan and the German distribution company decided to show the uncut long version of the movie in Germany, and then this version is going to be shown in England and in the States. So you're going to see the movie that as it was originally planned and was shown in France and other countries. And I'm very happy also that it was dubbed into German, because this movie was, for example, released in France in English with French subtitles, and it doesn't work with the concept of the movie. So it's much better if you see it either in English or in German without subtitles. Where does the project come from? I guess it comes from when I was 7 years old, and I saw, like most of the people here when they were kids, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I had my first huge drug trip ever when I was 7. I was there, and I was in cinema with my parents. I forgot I was with my parents. I forgot I was in Argentina. I forgot everything else. I was just like tripping out. And since that moment, I heard my mother saying, I felt I was on drugs. And I said, what are drugs? If drugs are like the movie, I want to test them. So I had to wait until I was 13 to find some marijuana as a friend, because I wanted to relive the experience I had when I was 7 watching 2001: A Space Odyssey. Then some other friend when I was 15 said, oh, no, it was not a friend, actually it was a guy I met in the street who ran to me, hey, do you have some money? I said, oh, I don't know you. He said, well, I can sell you some acid trip. Acid trip, hey, how much? So 1 week later I was testing the acid, and it was really good. The first time was good, sometimes later it can turn into a bad trip, and I had bad experience on acid, so be careful. I'm not promoting it. But later, some other friend one day told me he could get me mushrooms. Of course, I said, I want to get mushrooms. Maybe I have the same experience I had when I was 7 years old with 2001. It was not as good. I had to try it once, twice, whatever. And when you get stoned, there are situations that you're out of control. You have visions, you mix colors. Your friends turn into animal, into insects, and there are weird things that don't happen in usual movies that happen to you. And you say, why don't I see movies like this? And I guess around 17, 18, I got out of secondary school and I started studying cinema. I got into the film school very early, when I was 17. And at that time, Altered States came out, and Eraserhead, so I had seen Eraserhead, which is like a nightmare, and Altered State, which was a bad mushroom movie. But I said, why didn't they shoot it from the perspective of the main character doing mushrooms? And you can see things that I've seen with my friends or without my friends. And I've been carrying this project for many years. I've been trying some other chemicals just in order to have this movie made. I went to the Amazonian jungle with my friend Jan Kunen to try some hallucinogenic plants that could enhance the power of the script of this movie. And I kept on doing research for many years. At the end, I've been partying in Tokyo with friends. Some of them went to jail, some of them didn't go to jail. But that was how I built up the project for many years. In the meantime, I had to do commercial movies to survive, pay my rent, whatever. But this was my main project since I did my first short, and well, I did other movies in the meantime. But the thing is, then there was a shifting point that the movie couldn't happen for many years. And when I did Irreversible, which is a very violent movie without a script that we improvised very quickly, I was told, can you make a movie with Vincent Cassel and Monica Bellucci? I said, of course, let's do a rape and revenge movie, told backwards, and we got the money. And I had this 120 pages script for years that I could not get financed. And finally, that other movie, because it was a major rape scene and the couple was famous, and I don't know, maybe it was in competition in Cannes, it was a commercial success. So after a few years, that movie helped me to direct this movie, which was my teenager dream. Of course, doing drugs in Japan is very, very dangerous. If you get busted just with rest of cocaine or marijuana in your pee, you go to jail for 6 months and you get fired off the country forever. So don't do that in Japan, do it anywhere else, but don't do that in Japan. And when we started the pre-production of the movie, I made everybody in the crew promise me that they would not smoke a joint, that they would not do anything, because the insurance company would not cover that, and the movie would have been stopped. So, but we needed to keep the energy going. We're working 6-7 days a week, 14 hours a day, so we all turned alcoholics. And then we had blackouts, which are not better than that, but the movie was done with heavy doses of vodka. Ginger with vodka, but it's a clean movie that reproduces other states of consciousness that are not induced by alcohol. It's very, very hard. No, not the other thing. From the beginning of the pre-production, I knew that the most risky scenes were the hallucinogenic scenes. It's very, very hard. Whoever has tried things here, and I feel that some people have already tried, it's very, very hard to put it into images, because the best things that you see, you hear, you think of, disappear at the same time that you see them, you feel them, whatever. And you can take notes, but the notes are nothing compared to what the experience is. So that's why most of the hallucinogenic or psychedelic movies have failed. Maybe the best ones nowadays are Jordan Belson's short films, Luis Buñuel's An Andalusian Dog, or Kenneth Sanger's inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, and the end of 2001. And Kubrick was saying about 2001 that he never experienced LSD because his brain was his best friend and he didn't want to damage his brain. I damaged part of my brain, and the movies was left.
Apart from not drugging in Japan, what was your biggest challenge in doing this movie? I mean, you shot in Japan, it's a really long movie with overwhelming pictures, little dialogue, and you also are using a lot of very difficult techniques. So what was your biggest challenge to do this thing?
Before you start doing the movie, the biggest challenge is to get it financed. To convince people to put lots of money in a movie, because the visual effects were very expensive. All of the production, the company that did all the visual effects co-produced the movie. It's still a big budget movie for what it contains. It's full of drugs, sex, love, etc., etc., etc. But and the script was quite long, so to convince people to put, even if they want money on Irreversible, to get them to put money on this movie with no famous actors. And also the fact that it was shot in Japan scares lots of people, because you don't know how Japanese people work, if they can betray you, if they can cheat you, whatever. But I had been many times to Japan, and I noticed that there are workaholics, and when in France you can work 5 days a week, and each day is made of 10 hours, I noticed that people could work there for 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I said, oh, maybe that's going to help me. And actually, they're so passionate that I think I will have problems in the future to shoot back in Europe or in the States or anywhere else. They're really passionate. Work goes before anything else. And it was a big fun shooting there. Then I had to shoot the childhood scenes of the main characters, who are supposed to be American, in Montreal, because we could shoot 8 hours a day with the kids in Montreal, and we could only shoot 4 hours a day with kids in New York, so we decided to shoot in Montreal. But then there were kills, and a minute is a minute, and if you, I felt I was in a cage. People were hyper-professional, but I really enjoyed what it was shooting in Japan with the Japanese crew. What else? If I chose Japan, it's also because it's a psychedelic country, or Tokyo is a psychedelic city for whoever who's been there for the first time. You know, there's a lot of neon lights and flickering lights that remind you of DMT effect. DMT is the DMT is a drug you can smoke, and for 5 minutes you are in another planet, and you come back, and 10 minutes later you are clean as water. But you can drink it in the Amazonian jungle. It's 2 plants that you mix. It's called ayahuasca, and the trip lasts for 24 hours in your head. It's just 4 hours or 5 hours outside, and it's full of like weird visions that remind you of the movie Tron, or the most daring science fiction movies you haven't even seen yet. But and then you come back and say, well, where could I shoot a movie that will be kind of futuristic? Of course, it can only be Hong Kong or Tokyo, which are the most futuristic cities nowadays.
So I think everyone is really looking forward now to see the film. What are we doing afterwards?
My German distributor had found a very good friend, Pilsner Urkel, who's giving a big beer party just across the street. We're gonna have beers. I know it's all night long, but free for a while.
Also es gibt Freibier nach dem Film, ja? Caspar wird da sein. Es gibt draußen im Bus direkt vom Kino. Wir trinken da Bier zusammen, das brauchen wir bestimmt auch. Und er wird da auch Autogramme geben, ne? Und mit euch ins Gespräch kommen.